Nan Kempner stands as one of the most enduring figures in the annals of American fashion and high society. Born in 1930 and passing in 2005, she embodied a unique blend of elegance, audacity, and philanthropy that captivated New York City's elite circles and the global fashion world. Renowned designers such as Yves Saint Laurent hailed her as la plus chic du monde, translating to the most chic in the world, while Vanity Fair crowned her the world's most famous clotheshorse. Her life was not merely a parade of luxurious outfits. It was a dynamic narrative of social influence, where she seamlessly intertwined high fashion with charitable endeavors, all while maintaining a lifestyle that resembled in perpetual celebration of sophistication. Kempner's story unfolds from her privileged beginnings in San Francisco to her commanding presence in Manhattan, marked by moments of rebellion, innovation in style, and profound contributions to causes beyond herself. Her journey reveals a woman who not only wore clothes but transformed them into statements of personal identity and cultural significance, inspiring generations with her unyielding passion for couture and her ability to navigate the complexities of upper-class life with grace and wit. This detailed exploration traces her life chronologically, delving into the nuances of her experiences, relationships, and achievements that solidified her legacy as a true pioneer in American chic. Early life and formative years, 1930 to 1949. Nan Kempner's story begins in the vibrant city of San Francisco, California, a place that during the early 20th century was a bustling hub of innovation, culture, and economic contrasts. Born on July 24, 1930, as Nan Field Schlesinger, she entered the world at a time when the United States was grappling with the onset of the Great Depression, an economic catastrophe that would define much of the decade. San Francisco, with its iconic fog-shrouded hills, bustling ports, and emerging skyline, was not immune to the hardships. Unemployment soared to as high as 30% by 1932, businesses shuttered, and families across the city faced poverty and uncertainty. Yet, amidst this widespread turmoil, Nan's family represented a pocket of enduring prosperity, a testament to the resilience of old money networks that buffered the elite from the worst of the era's woes. As the only child in a prosperous Jewish family, Nan was immersed in an environment of affluence and high expectations from the outset, one that shielded her from the breadlines and Hoovervilles that dotted the landscape outside her privileged bubble. Her father, Albert Speed Schlesinger, was a prominent businessman whose nickname evoked the fast-paced entrepreneurial spirit of the automotive industry. He owned S&C Motors, the largest automobile dealership in California, specializing in Ford vehicles and catering to the West Coast's growing demand for personal transportation. In an era when cars symbolized not just mobility but status and modernity, especially during the 1930s, when automobiles like the Ford Model A became emblems of American ingenuity. Despite economic constraints, Albert's business thrived. He had built his empire through shrewd dealings and a keen understanding of the market, expanding his operations even as the Depression forced many competitors to fold. Reports from the time suggest that San Francisco's economy, bolstered by federal New Deal projects like the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge, which began in 1933 and opened in 1937, and the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, completed in 1936, provided a backdrop of infrastructural growth that indirectly supported industries like automobiles. Albert's success afforded the family a lifestyle of grand homes in upscale neighborhoods, perhaps in areas like Pacific Heights or Nob Hill, where Victorian mansions overlooked the bay and hosted lavish gatherings, attended by the city's social elite. Nan's mother, Irma Schlesinger, was a socialite whose own emphasis on appearance and decorum played a crucial role in shaping her daughter's worldview. Irma, described in later accounts as someone who cared terribly about how she looked, embodied the refined elegance that was expected of women in high society. The family's Jewish heritage added another layer to their identity. In the 1930s San Francisco, the Jewish community was vibrant and influential, with institutions like Congregation Emmanuel serving as cultural and social anchors. However, this period was also marked by subtle anti-Semitism and the rising global threats of fascism, which would culminate in World War II. Despite these undercurrents, the Schlesingers fused traditional Jewish values, such as community involvement and education, with the opulent lifestyle of the West Coast elite, creating a home environment where luxury was not ostentatious, but integrated into daily life. Nan, as an only child, received undivided attention from her parents, often described in biographical sketches as being spoiled rotten in the most constructive sense. This meant exposure to the finer things, exquisite dining at renowned establishments like the Cliff House or Tadich Grill, cultural outings to the San Francisco Opera or symphony performances, and travels that honed her appreciation for aesthetics. These experiences were formative, teaching her the nuances of social dynamics, how to navigate conversations, present oneself, and appreciate beauty in its many forms. Growing up in such a milieu during the 1930s provided Nan with an early education in luxury and resilience. While many families struggled, the Schlesingers' wealth allowed for continuity in their lifestyle, including domestic staff, private tutors, and access to exclusive clubs. San Francisco's social scene in this decade was a mix of old-world charm and emerging modernity. The city hosted events like the Panama Pacific International Exposition's lingering influences from 1915, but by the 1930s, it was evolving with Art Deco architecture and a bohemian undercurrent in areas like North Beach. Nan's family likely participated in charitable balls and society galas, where women donned gowns inspired by Hollywood glamour, even as rationing and economic restraint loomed. This contrast between personal opulence and societal hardship may have instilled in Nan a subtle awareness of privilege, though her youth shielded her from its full implications. A pivotal moment in her early development came from a candid piece of advice from her father. "You'll never make it on your looks alone, so you'd better be interesting." This remark, delivered perhaps during a family dinner or a moment of paternal guidance, carried the weight of the era's pragmatic outlook. In the 1930s, when women's roles were often confined to domesticity or supportive positions, reinforced by cultural norms and the economic necessity of male breadwinners, such words could have been deflating. For a young girl, potentially stinging in its implication that physical beauty was insufficient, it instead served as a catalyst for Nan's personal growth. Rather than dwelling on any perceived shortcomings in physical beauty, she channeled this into cultivating a multifaceted personality, sharp wit, unshakable confidence, and a charm that made her unforgettable in any room. Imagine a young Nan, perhaps at age 10 or 11, practicing clever retorts during family gatherings, or devouring books on history and art to arm herself with conversational ammunition. This advice shifted her focus from superficial appearances to becoming a compelling individual, a trait that would define her interactions throughout life. In the context of the 1930s and 1940s, America, where societal roles for women were often rigid, shaped by the lingering Victorian ideals and the emerging feminist stirrings amid wartime necessities, this encouragement to be interesting empowered her to transcend conventional expectations. During World War II, which erupted in 1939 and drew the U.S. in by 1941, San Francisco transformed into a military hub with shipyards like those at Hunters Point booming, bringing an influx of workers and a shift in gender dynamics. Women entered the workforce in droves, embodying the Rosie the Riveter archetype. But for elite families like the Schlesingers, such changes were observed from afar. Nan, entering her teens as the war raged, likely witnessed these shifts, perhaps through newsreels at the Fox Theater or discussions at home, further reinforcing her father's message. She developed interests beyond the domestic, honing skills in debate, literature, and etiquette that would later make her a standout in New York's salons. Biographical anecdotes suggest this period built her resilience. As an only child without siblings for rivalry, she learned to captivate adults, turning potential isolation into an asset. From her childhood years, Nan exhibited an innate obsession with fashion, distancing herself from the ephemeral trends that might captivate her peers, and instead gravitating toward the timeless artistry of haute couture. This was not the mass-produced clothing of department stores like the Emporium or I. Magnin in San Francisco, which catered to middle-class shoppers with ready-to-wear items influenced by Hollywood stars like Greta Garbo or Joan Crawford. Instead, Nan was drawn to the meticulously hand-stitched masterpieces emerging from Parisian ateliers, where every seam and fabric choice told a story of craftsmanship. The 1930s fashion landscape was dominated by elegant bias-cut gowns from designers like Madeleine Vianney and Elsa Schiaparelli, emphasizing fluid lines and surrealist touches amid the Depression's austerity. Even as economic constraints led to simpler silhouettes, haute couture represented escapism and enduring quality. Her mother, Irma, played an instrumental role in nurturing this passion, introducing her to the world of high-end design through shopping excursions and discussions about style. Irma, as a socialite, likely subscribed to magazines like Vogue or Harper's Bazaar, which brought Parisian trends to American shores, and she may have owned pieces from early American designers like Hattie Carnegie or imports from Europe. As a young girl, Nan would accompany her mother on these outings, perhaps to upscale boutiques on Maiden Lane or Union Square, her eyes widening at the sight of silk gowns adorned with intricate beading and embroidery, fabrics that draped with an almost ethereal quality. These experiences imprinted on her a deep respect for fashion as an art form, one that required discernment and investment. Nan later recalled in interviews how these moments sparked her lifelong addiction to couture, viewing clothes not as mere coverings, but as expressions of personality and history. The onset of World War II in the 1940s brought changes to fashion, with fabric rationing leading to utility clothing, shorter hems, narrower skirts, and practical suits inspired by military uniforms. In America, this era saw the rise of sportswear pioneers like Claire McCardell, who emphasized functionality and comfort, influencing even elite wardrobes. San Francisco, as a port city sending troops to the Pacific, buzzed with wartime energy, and Nan's family likely contributed to bond drives or Red Cross events, where style adapted to patriotism. Yet Irma's influence ensured Nan appreciated the pre-war glamour, perhaps through preserved family heirlooms or stories of Parisian shows. By her teenage years in the 1940s, Nan had already begun assembling a personal collection of clothing that foreshadowed her future as a couture connoisseur. This early collecting habit was remarkable for its foresight. While many of her contemporaries might have viewed fashion as disposable, discarding outfits after a season due to wartime shortages or economic prudence, Nan treated it with the reverence of a curator, selecting pieces that embodied enduring elegance. Her choices may have included tailored dresses with padded shoulders, a hallmark of 1940s style, or early examples of American ready-to-wear that blended European sophistication with Yankee practicality. Living in San Francisco, a city known for its cultural vibrancy, home to artists in the Montgomery Block, a bohemian enclave, and proximity to Hollywood's glamour via the film industry, further fueled her interests. The city's theaters, like the Curran or Geary, hosted productions where attendees showcased the latest trends, and Nan, attending with her parents, began to experiment with her own looks. The post-World War II era, from 1945 to 1949, provided an ideal backdrop for her burgeoning style sensibilities as the economic boom unleashed pent-up demand for luxury. With the war's end, San Francisco experienced a surge in prosperity. Returning soldiers, new industries, and federal investments revitalized the city. Fashion rebounded dramatically with Christian Dior's new look in 1947, introducing voluminous skirts and cinched waists that symbolized femininity and abundance after years of austerity. Though Nan's first Dior purchase came later in the 1950s, her teenage years aligned with this shift, allowing her to dream of such opulence. She attended local events and social functions, debutante balls, charity teas, or synagogue gatherings, where her emerging poise and fashion choices began to draw notice. Peers might have worn simple A-line dresses, but Nan's selections hinted at a discerning eye, perhaps incorporating accessories like pearl necklaces or gloves that echoed Parisian chic. Education, meeting her future husband, and early adulthood, 1950 to 1952. As Nan transitioned into young adulthood, her path led her eastward to Connecticut College, where she pursued higher education and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree. This period in the early 1950s marked a significant expansion of her horizons, moving from the familiar confines of San Francisco to the intellectual and social environment of a liberal arts institution. Connecticut College, known for its emphasis on women's education during an era when such opportunities were still evolving, provided Nan with a platform to refine her intellect and social skills. She engaged in coursework that likely sharpened her analytical mind and cultural awareness, complements to the interesting persona her father had urged her to develop. It was during these college years that fate intervened in the form of Thomas Lennox Kempner, whom she met and would later marry. Thomas, affectionately known as Tommy, came from a distinguished German Jewish family, deeply entrenched in New York's financial and publishing worlds. As the son of publisher Alan H. Kempner and grandson of the influential financier Carl M. Loeb, Tommy represented a lineage of East Coast establishment power. Their meeting was more than a romantic encounter. It symbolized the convergence of Nan's West Coast flair with the structured sophistication of New York aristocracy. The couple's connection deepened quickly, built on shared values of ambition, culture, and social engagement. In 1952, Nan and Tommy exchanged vows in a wedding that was as much a union of individuals as it was a merger of two prominent families. This event blended the relaxed opulence of California with the formal traditions of New York, creating a foundation for their shared life. The marriage provided Nan with entry into a new realm of influence, one that would amplify her natural talents for socializing and style. Shortly after, the couple welcomed their first child, beginning a family that would eventually include 3 children: Lena Kempner, Thomas Kempner Jr., and James Kempner. Parenthood added layers to Nan's identity, balancing her emerging role as a society figure with the responsibilities of motherhood. This era also saw Nan's fashion passion intensify. In the early 1950s, she acquired her first Christian Dior dress during a trip to Paris, a sheath from the designer's own hands that marked her initiation into the elite world of couture. This purchase was no mere indulgence. It was a declaration of her commitment to high fashion, a gateway drug to a lifelong addiction that would see her traveling to Paris biannually for fashion shows. Rubbing elbows with luminaries like Valentino and Yves Saint Laurent, she positioned herself not just as a spectator, but as a muse and informed critic. Her physical attributes, tall at nearly 5 feet 9 inches, slim and always toned, made her an ideal model for designers' visions. As Valentino later noted, "Nan always looks so wonderful in my clothes because she has a body like a hanger." This compliment, though backhanded in its implication of slenderness, underscored her as a living embodiment of fashion's ideals. These years of education and early marriage were transformative, bridging Nan's youthful enthusiasms with the mature pursuits that would define her. They equipped her with the networks, knowledge, and confidence to step into the spotlight of New York society, where her story would truly unfold. Marriage, family life, and settlement in New York, 1952 to 1960s. Following their 1952 wedding, Nan and Tommy Kempner embarked on a life that blended domestic stability with international flair, marking the beginning of a partnership that would span over 5 decades and become a cornerstone of New York's high society. The wedding itself, held in San Francisco to honor Nan's West Coast roots, had been a lavish affair that seamlessly merged the casual elegance of California with the more formal, tradition-bound sophistication of New York's elite circles. Nan, radiant in a gown that captured the feminine ideals of the early 1950s, perhaps a fitted bodice with a full skirt echoing Christian Dior's influential new look, exchanged vows with Tommy under a traditional Jewish chuppah, surrounded by family and friends from both coasts. Tommy, a promising investment banker from a prominent German Jewish family, represented stability and ambition, while Nan brought her innate charm, wit, and burgeoning passion for fashion. Their union was not just a personal milestone, but a strategic alliance of 2 influential families. The Schlesingers, with their automotive empire in California, and the Kempners, tied to New York's financial powerhouses through Tommy's grandfather, Carl M. Loeb, founder of the investment firm Loeb, Rhodes & Co. Bowers. This merger set the tone for a life of privilege, where domestic harmony coexisted with global adventures and social prominence. Initially, the newlyweds spent a brief period in London, immersing themselves in the city's foggy charm, posh teas, and cultural scene. This European interlude, likely lasting a few months in the early 1950s, served as an extended honeymoon and a gentle introduction to married life away from the immediate pressures of family expectations back home. London in the post-World War II era was a city in recovery, still bearing the scars of the Blitz but reclaiming its status as a cultural capital. The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953 would soon captivate the world, but even in 1952, the city buzzed with a sense of renewal. Theaters on the West End staged productions like Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap, which premiered that year, and high society revolved around venues like Claridge's or the Ritz, where afternoon teas were rituals of refinement. For Nan and Tommy, this time abroad was an opportunity to explore Europe's artistic and social landscapes. Nan, already enchanted by fashion, likely visited Savile Row tailors or emerging designers influenced by Paris, absorbing the understated British elegance that contrasted with American boldness. Tommy, with his banking background, might have networked in the City of London, forging connections that would benefit his career. This stint exposed Nan to additional influences in fashion and society, refining her tastes, perhaps introducing her to the structured suits of Hardy Amy's or the emerging mod trends, and broadening her worldview beyond the sunny optimism of San Francisco. It was a period of adjustment where the couple learned to navigate married life amid the novelty of a foreign city, from foggy morning walks in Hyde Park to evenings at opera houses like Covent Garden. Yet, despite the allure of London's cosmopolitan vibe, the pull of New York City proved irresistible. As Tommy's career in investment banking gained momentum, he would eventually rise to chairman of Loeb Partners. The couple recognized that Manhattan was the epicenter of opportunity, finance, and society. By the mid-1950s, they relocated permanently to New York, drawn by its pulsating energy and the promise of building a family legacy there. In Manhattan, they established a luxurious residence on Park Avenue, a 16-room duplex that became synonymous with elegance, featuring chandeliers that cast a warm glow over polished marble floors, priceless art on the walls from emerging abstract expressionists like Mark Rothko or established masters, and a closet system that rivaled small museums in its organization and opulence. Park Avenue in the 1950s was the epitome of Upper East Side grandeur, a tree-lined boulevard flanked by pre-war apartment buildings where doormen in crisp uniforms guarded entrances to the homes of the city's elite. The Kempner's duplex, likely in one of the iconic buildings like 740 or 960 Park Avenue, was a testament to their status. Sprawling living rooms for entertaining, a formal dining area seating dozens, and private quarters that offered sanctuary amid the city's hustle. Nan, with her curator's eye for aesthetics, curated the space meticulously, perhaps incorporating mid-century modern furniture from designers like Eero Saarinen, alongside antique pieces inherited from family. The closets, in particular, were legendary. Nan's wardrobe, already expanding with Couture acquisitions, required custom-built storage with climate control to preserve delicate fabrics, turning what could have been mere storage into a personal gallery of fashion history. Complementing this urban base was a country home in Purchase, New York, a serene suburb in Westchester County, offering respite for weekend retreats amid rolling landscapes dotted with horse farms and manicured estates. Purchase, with its proximity to Manhattan, just a 45-minute drive or train ride, was a haven for New York's wealthy, where families escaped the city's intensity for polo matches at the nearby Greenwich Polo Club or leisurely golf at exclusive courses. The Kempner home there might have featured expansive grounds for children to play, a pool for summer gatherings, and interiors blending rustic charm with urban sophistication. Think wood-paneled libraries, stocked with first editions, and gardens blooming with imported roses. These properties served as more than homes. They were venues for Nan's legendary gatherings, where champagne flowed freely from crystal flutes, gossip circulated like currency among the guests, and the global elite converged in a swirl of laughter and intrigue. Nan's role as a hostess was innate, a natural extension of her charismatic personality and the interesting persona cultivated since childhood. In the 1950s, New York society was a tightly knit world of debutante balls, charity galas, and private dinners, chronicled in columns by society editors like Igor Cassini, Charlie Knickerbocker in the New York Journal American. Nan quickly became a fixture, hosting soirees that blended intellectual discourse with glamour, perhaps a dinner party featuring discussions on Eisenhower's presidency, 1953 to 1961, or the space race, interspersed with tales from Paris Fashion Weeks. Her gatherings attracted a diverse crowd. Wall Street titans like Tommy's colleagues, artists from the burgeoning pop art scene, Andy Warhol would later paint her portrait in 1973, but connections formed early, and fellow socialites from families like the Astors or Vanderbilts. Champagne, often vintage Moet and Chandon, was a staple, symbolizing the era's post-war prosperity. Gossip, that subtle art of high society, thrived in these settings. Whispers about Jackie Kennedy's style, whom Nan would later befriend, or the latest Broadway scandals. Nan turned ordinary evenings into memorable events that reinforced her status, her husky voice and self-deprecating humor disarming even the most reserved guests. For instance, she might quip about her closet's size while serving exquisite French cuisine prepared by a private chef, making everyone feel at ease, yet envious of her effortless chic. Family life remained central during these years, providing a grounding counterpoint to the whirlwind of social obligations. Raising Lena, Thomas Jr., and James, born in the mid to late 1950s, Nan navigated the demands of motherhood while pursuing her passions, embodying dual roles many women faced in the era. The 1950s idealized the nuclear family, promoted through media like Leave It to Beaver, debuting in 1957, where mothers were homemakers in pearl necklaces and aprons. Yet Nan subverted this slightly. While devoted to her children, she infused their upbringing with her unique emphasis on style and social grace. The kids grew up in an environment of privilege, much like Nan's own childhood in San Francisco. Nannies, private schools like Dalton or Brearley on the Upper East Side, and summers at exclusive camps in the Adirondacks or European vacations. Lena, the eldest, might have been dressed in miniature couture outfits, learning etiquette at tea parties hosted by her mother. Thomas Jr. and James, as boys, enjoyed the freedoms of the time, perhaps Little League baseball in Central Park or sailing lessons on Long Island Sound, while absorbing their father's work ethic and their mother's cultural savvy. Nan balanced this with hands-on involvement, reading bedtime stories from classics like The Wind in the Willows, organizing family outings to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where she would later serve on committees, or holiday celebrations blending Jewish traditions with American customs like Hanukkah lights alongside Christmas trees for blended friends. Tommy, as a successful banker rising through the ranks at Loeb Partners, provided financial security. His steady income from Wall Street's bull markets of the 1950s, allowing Nan the freedom to explore her interests without constraint. This stability was crucial. The era's economic growth, with the Dow Jones surging and suburbs booming, enabled such lifestyles. But Tommy's prudence ensured long-term wealth. Rise in New York society and jet-set lifestyle, 1960s to 1970s. By the 1960s and into the 1970s, Nan Kempner had ascended to the pinnacle of New York high society, becoming a central figure in its glittering orbit. This era marked a transformative phase in her life, as she transitioned from a young wife and mother establishing roots in Manhattan to a fully realized icon whose presence defined the city's elite social landscape. New York in the 1960s was a city of profound change and contradiction. The civil rights movement, anti-war protests, and the sexual revolution roiled the streets, while the upper echelons clung to traditions of glamour and exclusivity, often retreating to private clubs like the Colony or Le Cirque for escapist luncheons. Nan, with her unerring sense of style and magnetic personality, navigated this dichotomy effortlessly, embodying the resilience of old money society amid cultural upheaval. Her rise was fueled by a combination of familial connections through her husband Tommy's banking empire and her own charisma, which drew admirers from Wall Street tycoons to emerging artists. She became a fixture at events like the Metropolitan Opera's opening nights or the Black and White Ball, hosted by Truman Capote in 1966, where she mingled with the likes of Andy Warhol and Jacqueline Kennedy. Her ascent was not accidental. It was the culmination of years of cultivating relationships, honed during her early marriage and London stint, now blooming in the fertile ground of Manhattan's social scene. By the mid-1960s, Nan was no longer just attending parties. She was the reason people showed up. Her name synonymous with the effortless chic that defined the decade's jet-set elite. Her life embodied the jet-set ethos, with constant travel to destinations like Paris for fashion weeks, Gstaad for skiing, Venice for romantic getaways, and the Caribbean for sun-soaked escapes. The term jet set itself, coined in the 1950s but popularized in the 1960s with the advent of commercial jet travel like Pan Am's Boeing 707 flights, perfectly encapsulated Nan's lifestyle, a whirlwind of transatlantic hops made possible by Tommy's financial success and her own insatiable curiosity. Paris was her spiritual home, where she attended couture shows twice a year, often staying at the Ritz Hotel on Place Vendôme, rubbing shoulders with designers like Yves Saint Laurent and Valentino Garavani. These trips weren't mere vacations. They were pilgrimages to the heart of fashion, where Nan would spend days in ateliers fitting gowns and suits that would later dazzle New York galas. In Gstaad, the Swiss alpine resort favored by the international elite, Nan embraced winter sports with the same fervor she applied to style. Photographs from the era show her gliding down slopes in custom ski outfits, perhaps a slim-fitting parka from Emilio Pucci paired with fur-trimmed boots, followed by après ski gatherings at the Palace Hotel, where fondue and champagne flowed amid discussions of global affairs. Venice offered a romantic contrast. Nan and Tommy would arrive by gondola for the Biennale or private soirees at Palazzo Volpi, her outfits evoking the city's Byzantine splendor with flowing caftans or velvet capes. The Caribbean, particularly islands like Mustique or Jamaica, provided sun-drenched respites. Nan favored stays at exclusive villas, lounging in bikinis from her vast collection while hosting impromptu beach parties for fellow socialites. These travels were facilitated by the era's technological advancements, faster flights and luxury liners like the SS France. But Nan's philosophy elevated them beyond logistics. She viewed travel as an extension of her wardrobe, always prepared, always impeccable. Her jet-set routine wasn't without its demands. Coordinating schedules with 3 children required nannies and careful planning, but Nan managed it with aplomb, often bringing the family along to instill in them a love for culture and adventure. This globe-trotting not only expanded her social network, befriending European aristocracy and Hollywood stars, but also enriched her personal style, incorporating elements like Italian silks or Swiss woolens into her ensembles. In an age when air travel democratized mobility, Nan's version remained exclusive, a symbol of the privileged few who could hop continents on a whim. She famously kept her passport in her handbag, quipping, "You never know where you might end up," reflecting a philosophy of perpetual readiness for adventure. This oft-repeated anecdote, shared in interviews with Women's Wear Daily and Vanity Fair, captured Nan's spontaneous spirit in a time when international borders were loosening, but still required formalities like visas and customs declarations. Her handbag, often a Hermes, Kelly, or Chanel flap, was more than an accessory. It was a mobile command center, containing not just the passport, but essentials like lipstick, cigarettes. She was a lifelong smoker, contributing to her husky voice, and invitations to impromptu events. This readiness stemmed from the 1960s cultural shift toward spontaneity, influenced by the Beatles' global tours and the rise of youth culture, but Nan adapted it to high society. A last-minute call from a friend in London might prompt a flight to Heathrow, or a designer's urgent fitting in Milan could reroute a family vacation. This mindset extended to her daily life in New York, where she might pivot from a lunch at La Grenouille to an evening flight for a gala in Monaco. The quote underscored her adaptability, a trait that endeared her to peers who admired her ability to maintain composure amid chaos. In the 1970s, as oil crises disrupted travel and economic uncertainty loomed, Nan's passport habit became a defiant assertion of luxury, a reminder that for the jet set, adventure was always just a stamp away. Her wardrobe organization was legendary. In the Park Avenue apartment, bikinis coexisted with ski jackets, linen dresses with fur coats, creating an organized chaos that ensured she was prepared for any climate or occasion. The duplex closets, spanning multiple rooms, were a marvel of efficiency amid excess. Custom racks, drawers labeled by fabric type, and even a dedicated space for accessories like gloves and hats. Unlike seasonal storage common among her peers, Nan kept everything accessible, arguing that life's unpredictability demanded it. A bikini from a Caribbean jaunt might hang next to a mink coat for Gstaad, symbolizing her rejection of rigid structures. This approach mirrored her mindset, always fabulous, always adaptable. In an era when fashion was evolving from the structured 1950s to the freewheeling 1970s. By the late 1960s, her collection numbered in the thousands, including 374 pieces from Yves Saint Laurent alone, preserved with museum-like care. Visitors to the apartment often marveled at the setup, which Nan described with humor. It's like a department store, but better stocked. This organized chaos wasn't just practical, it was philosophical, reflecting the decade's blend of tradition and innovation, where women like Nan balanced family duties with global pursuits. In the 1970s, Nan joined the Cat Pack, a group of influential women named by Women's Wear Daily, known for their fierce style and non-stop social calendar. Coined by WWD in the early 1970s, the Cat Pack referred to a loose alliance of stylish, powerful women who dominated New York's nightlife and fashion scene, including Mika Erdogan, wife of Atlantic Records founder Amit, Gloria Vanderbilt, and sometimes overlapping with other circles like Studio 54 regulars. Nan was a core member, her inclusion a nod to her unapologetic glamour and social prowess. As part of this original girl gang, she hosted and attended parties that defined the era's excess, from dawn to dusk soirees to international jaunts. Think lavish bashes at her Purchase estate, where guests arrived by helicopter for all-night dancing to disco hits like Donna Summer's Love to Love You Baby, or Studio 54 appearances where Nan, in a Halston halter dress, mingled with Bianca Jagger and Andy Warhol. These events were extravagant, caviar bars, live bands, and themes inspired by her travels, like a Venetian masquerade with gondola replicas. Her presence at these events was magnetic, drawing admiration for her elegance and humor. She could diffuse tension with a witty remark or command the room with her statuesque frame draped in couture. The Cat Pack represented the 1970s shift toward bolder femininity, influenced by women's liberation, and Nan embodied it. Her style fierce yet refined. Rumors added layers to her mystique. Whispers suggested she orbited Truman Capote's Swans circle, perhaps clashing with the author over her overpowering aesthetic. Capote's Swans, Babe Paley, Slim Keith, C.Z. Guest, Lee Radziwill, were the epitome of mid-century elegance, immortalized in his writings and later betrayed in La Côte Basque 1965. Published in Esquire in 1975, which exposed their secrets, and severed ties. Nan, though not a core swan, moved in adjacent orbits. She shared friendships with Paley and Keith, attending the same luncheons at La Côte Basque or galas at the Met. Allegations of Capote's secret grudge, viewing her as too thin, too loud, too visible, stemmed from anecdotal reports of his envy. Nan's bold presence allegedly overshadowed his more delicate aesthetic preferences. Sources like Vanity Fair retrospectives hint at tension, with Capote reportedly finding her overpowering in social settings, her laughter too boisterous, or her style too assertive compared to the Swans' serene poise. Whether true or embellished folklore, these tales only enhanced her allure, proving that her too much energy was a strength in a world that often demanded women dim their light. Nan's blonde hair, often styled in a chic bob or upswept for evenings, husky voice from years of smoking, and self-deprecating jokes like calling herself an alcoholic when it comes to clothes, endeared her to many, turning potential criticism into charm. Her slenderness inspired Tom Wolfe's social X-ray term in The Bonfire of the Vanities, a 1987 novel satirizing 1980s excess, but rooted in 1970s observations of ultra-thin socialites like Nan, whose figures seemed translucent under harsh ballroom lights. Fashion mastery, career achievements, and philanthropic legacy, 1970s to 2000s, Nan Kempner's devotion to fashion reached its zenith from the 1970s through the 1990s, establishing her as the undisputed queen of couture in a period when the industry was undergoing profound transformations. The 1970s marked a shift from the structured elegance of previous decades to a more liberated, eclectic aesthetic influenced by counterculture movements, disco fever, and the rise of ready-to-wear, while the 1980s and 1990s saw the globalization of fashion with power dressing, minimalism, and the emergence of supermodels. Amid these changes, Nan remained a steadfast pillar of haute couture, her passion undiminished by trends that came and went. Over an astonishing 55 years of engagement with the fashion world, spanning from her first Dior purchase in the 1950s to her final attendances in the 2000s, early 2000s, she missed only one fashion season, a testament to her unwavering commitment that bordered on obsession. This near-perfect attendance record was no small feat. Fashion weeks in Paris, Milan, and later New York required biannual transatlantic journeys, often involving grueling schedules of back-to-back shows, fittings, and social obligations. Nan's dedication turned her into a living archive of fashion history as she witnessed the evolution from Yves Saint Laurent's revolutionary pantsuits to Karl Lagerfeld's reinvention of Chanel in the 1980s. Her private collection, one of America's finest and most comprehensive, encompassed thousands of pieces from luminaries like Mamboche Couturier, known for his precise tailoring in the mid-century, Yves Saint Laurent, whose bohemian and androgynous designs Nan championed, Bill Blass, the epitome of American sportswear luxury, Valentino, famous for his romantic red gowns, Karl Lagerfeld for Chanel, blending rock and roll edge with classic tweeds, and Christian Dior, the house that started it all for her. These garments were not mere clothes, but preserved artifacts of mid-20th century fashion history, capturing pivotal moments like the New Look revival in the 1970s or the power shoulders of the 1980s. Nan treated them as art rather than mere attire, storing them in climate-controlled closets in her Park Avenue duplex, where custom racks and archival boxes protected delicate silks, embroideries, and beading from the ravages of time. This approach elevated her collection beyond personal vanity. it became a repository of cultural significance, rivaling institutional holdings and reflecting her foresight in recognizing fashion's enduring value. She wore her collection with innovative flair, transforming high couture into everyday expressions of personal identity in an era when fashion was increasingly democratized, yet still revered by the elite. Daytime looks favored tailored suits from YSL or Chanel, exuding power and elegance that aligned with the 1980s corporate feminism, where women like Nan embodied the working girl archetype without sacrificing sophistication. Imagine Nan striding into a board meeting or luncheon in a Chanel tweed suit, its signature braided trim and gold buttons catching the light, paired with a silk blouse and pearls, projecting an aura of unassailable authority. Evenings featured head-turning gowns at galas, such as those from Valentino or Oscar de la Renta, where intricate pleating or bold colors turned her into the focal point of events like the Met Gala, which gained prominence in the 1970s under Diana Vreeland's curation. Her genius lay in mixing. By the 1970s, she blended vintage blouses with modern skirts, fusing eras and designers in ways that anticipated the postmodern mashups of the 1990s. For instance, a 1950s Mainbocher top might be paired with a 1970s YSL safari skirt, creating ensembles that defied seasonal or stylistic boundaries. This approach married European sophistication, with its emphasis on craftsmanship and heritage, with American sportswear's comfort, creating a casual luxury vibe that was uniquely Nan. It echoed the sportswear revolution led by designers like Claire McCardell in earlier decades, but elevated it to couture levels, allowing for fluidity in a world where women were increasingly mobile and multifaceted. Diana Vreeland, the legendary Vogue editor and arbiter of taste, praised her unequivocally. "No American woman is elegant. The only exception is Nan Kempner." This endorsement, coming from Vreeland in the 1970s, when she was consulting for the Met's Costume Institute, underscored Nan's singular ability to infuse American practicality with Parisian polish, making her a bridge between continents and cultures. Her style extended to entertainment outfits for diverse scenarios: hunting in Normandy, Christmas in Santo Domingo, poolside in Venice, infusing joy and surprise into every occasion. These entertainment looks, as Nan termed them, were designed for leisure and spectacle, reflecting the 1970s hedonism and the 1980s opulence. For a hunting weekend in Normandy, she might don a tailored barber-inspired jacket from Balmain over jodhpurs, blending equestrian functionality with couture flair, complete with a Hermes scarf tied jauntily. Christmas in Santo Domingo called for tropical elegance, flowing caftans from Oscar de la Renta in vibrant prints, accessorized with chunky jewelry from Tiffany & Company, evoking the island's warmth while maintaining her signature slim silhouette. Poolside in Venice during the Biennale, Nan favored sleek swimsuits from Godex or Ares, layered with linen cover-ups from Valentino, turning a simple dip into a fashion statement amid the city's canals and palazzos. These outfits weren't just practical. They infused joy and surprise, often eliciting gasps from companions at their unexpected pairings or bold colors. Suits bore her personal touch, adapting designer visions to her sensibility. She might shorten a hem or add a brooch, personalizing pieces to reflect her mood or the event's theme. This customization highlighted her as a collaborator rather than a passive consumer, influencing designers who valued her feedback during fittings. Unlike peers who discarded outdated items in favor of the latest trends, selling off last season's pieces at consignment shops or donating them hastily, Nan retained masterpieces for their craftsmanship, turning her closet into a personal archive that rivaled professional museums. In the disposable culture of the 1970s, fast fashion boom, and the 1980s excess, Nan's preservationist approach was revolutionary. She selected items based on timeless quality, such as the impeccable stitching of a Lagerfeld Chanel jacket or the innovative fabrics of a Blas ensemble. Her collection grew methodically, with acquisitions documented in personal ledgers, ensuring each piece told a story of a particular show, a memorable evening, or a designer's innovation. She humorously noted to her husband Tommy, "Now it turns out I'm an art collector." Can you imagine? This quip, often recounted in interviews, captured the irony. What Tommy once viewed as extravagance had evolved into a valuable asset, with pieces appreciating like fine art. Indeed, by the 1990s, her wardrobe's worth rivaled investment portfolios, preserving rarities like early YSL Rive Gauche, ready-to-wear, or Dior's bar suits. This era highlighted her as a visionary, whose collection and style influenced the industry profoundly. Designers cited her as a muse, and her mixing techniques foreshadowed the eclectic styling of the 2000s. Beyond personal style, Nan Kempner built a multifaceted career that amplified her influence, leveraging her fashion acumen into professional roles that spanned media, design, and institutions. The 1980s and 1990s were decades of professional empowerment for women, with figures like Anna Wintour ascending at Vogue and the rise of female executives in creative industries. Nan, already a society fixture, transitioned into these realms with ease. She served as contributing editor for French Vogue, a prestigious position where she offered insider perspectives on trends, penning articles on emerging designers, or the intersection of fashion and culture. Her bilingual fluency and Paris connections made her an ideal voice, bridging American readers with European haute couture. Similarly, as fashion editor for Harper's Bazaar under editors like Anthony Mazzola in the 1980s, Nan shaped content that highlighted innovative styling, often drawing from her own wardrobe for inspiration. These roles weren't token. She provided sharp critiques and trend forecasts, influencing how fashion was consumed in the U.S. As design consultant for Tiffany & Company in the 1980s, she bridged fashion and jewelry, advising on collections that complemented couture, perhaps suggesting pairings of diamond necklaces with evening gowns, or creating limited edition pieces inspired by her travels. Her tenure as international representative for Christie's auction house in the 1990s further expanded her scope. She specialized in fashion and art sales, using her network to attract high-profile consignments and buyers. Auctions under her influence might feature vintage couture from her circle, fetching record prices and elevating fashion's status as collectible art. Her position on the visiting committee for the Met's Costume Institute starting in the 1970s, but peaking in the 1980s to 1990s, solidified her expertise. She advised on acquisitions, exhibitions like the 1983 YSL retrospective, and galas that raised millions. These roles demonstrated Nan's intellectual depth, turning her passion into a career that shaped industry standards. Philanthropy defined her later years, transforming her social clout into tangible good and revealing a compassionate side beneath the glamorous facade. Over 30 years, from the 1970s through the early 2000s, she raised over $75 million for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, a leading institution in cancer research and patient care. Motivated perhaps by personal losses or the era's health crises, like the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s that ravaged fashion circles, Nan chaired galas, organized fundraisers, and leveraged her network for donations. Events like the annual Society of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center Ball became must-attends, where Nan's hosting skills shone, themed decorations, celebrity guests, and auctions of couture pieces from her collection. She also aided Lighthouse International, supporting vision-impaired individuals through similar initiatives. In 2000, she published RSVP, Menus for Entertaining from People Who Really Know How, a guide to entertaining that distilled her hostess prowess into practical advice, recipes for perfect martinis, table-setting tips, and anecdotes from her parties. Illustrated with photos from her life, the book donated all proceeds to charity, raising additional funds while sharing her expertise. These efforts demonstrated Nan's ability to leverage social clout for meaningful impact, proving her depth beyond surface glamour. In a time when philanthropy became a society staple, think Princess Diana's causes in the 1990s, Nan's work was genuine, earning her awards and lasting gratitude from beneficiaries. Later, Life, Death, and Enduring Legacy, 2000 to present. In her final years, Nan Kempner faced significant health challenges from emphysema, a debilitating respiratory condition that gradually eroded her once boundless energy and physical vitality. Yet she remained remarkably vibrant and engaged until her death on July 3, 2005, at the age of 74. Emphysema, a form of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, is characterized by the destruction of lung tissue leading to shortness of breath, chronic coughing, and reduced oxygen intake, often exacerbated by long-term exposure to irritants like cigarette smoke. Nan's condition was likely linked to her lifelong smoking habit, a common vice among her generation's socialites that contributed to her distinctive husky voice, a trait that became as much a part of her persona as her impeccable style. By the early 2000s, as medical advancements in COPD management, such as inhaled bronchodilators, oxygen therapy, and pulmonary rehabilitation programs, became more widespread, Nan was able to maintain a semblance of her active lifestyle despite the disease's progression. Reports from contemporaries and family members paint a picture of a woman who refused to let illness define her. Instead, she approached her declining health with the same unyielding wit and grace that had carried her through decades of high society. Even as mobility became an issue, Nan continued to host small, intimate gatherings in her Park Avenue duplex, where her legendary closet served as conversation starters, filled with tales of Parisian ateliers and New York galas. She quipped to visitors about her addiction to clothes, turning potentially somber moments into lighthearted reminiscences. This resilience mirrored broader societal shifts in the early 21st century toward greater awareness of chronic illnesses. Campaigns emphasized quality of life for emphysema patients, aligning with Nan's determination to stay socially connected. Her final years were spent in quiet reflection on a life well lived, surrounded by family and a tight-knit circle of friends who admired her for never losing her spark. Nan's death occurred peacefully at home, just weeks shy of her 75th birthday, marking the end of an era for those who knew her as a beacon of elegance and endurance. Survived by her devoted husband Tommy and her 3 children, Lena, Thomas Jr., and James, Nan's passing left a profound void in her family, who became the primary guardians of her memory and contributions. Tommy Kempner, her partner of more than 5 decades and a successful investment banker whose steady presence had anchored Nan's whirlwind life, continued to honor her through shared family traditions and public tributes. Their marriage, built on mutual respect and shared adventures, had weathered challenges including a brief separation in the late 1980s, but emerged stronger, exemplifying the enduring bonds of their generation. The children, each carving out their own paths. Lena often involved in artistic and cultural pursuits reminiscent of her mother's passions. Thomas Jr. following in his father's financial footsteps, and James pursuing creative endeavors, reflected Nan's influence in their poise and commitment to philanthropy. In interviews and family statements following her death, they spoke of her as a guiding force, teaching them not only about style and social grace, but also about resilience and generosity. The memorial service, held 2 months later on September the 23rd, 2005, at Christie's Zoss Auction House in New York, drew an impressive 500 attendees, a testament to her vast network and the deep connections she had forged across fashion, art, and society. Christie's, located at 20 Rockefeller Plaza, was a poignant choice for the venue. Nan had served as an international representative for the auction house in the 1990s, leveraging her expertise to bridge fashion and fine art sales. The service transformed the grand auction rooms, typically alive with bids on priceless artifacts, into a space of remembrance, filled with floral arrangements echoing Nan's love for vibrant, elegant displays, eulogies from close friends like designer Oscar de la Renta and philanthropist Annette de la Renta highlighted her wit, her celery-thin figure that made Couture sing, and her unapologetic love for life. Attendees included luminaries from her world, fashion icons who recalled her front-row presence at Paris shows, society figures who shared stories of her legendary parties, and philanthropists grateful for her fundraising prowess. The event was described as Nan's last party, a fitting send-off where laughter mingled with tears, and toasts were raised in her honor. This gathering not only honored her personal connections, but also raised additional awareness for causes like the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, foreshadowing the ongoing philanthropic threads of her legacy. Posthumously, her legacy flourished through a series of exhibitions that brought her extraordinary couture collection to the forefront, allowing the public to engage with her vision of fashion as an enduring art form. The most celebrated was the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Nan Kempner American Chic, which opened on December 12, 2006 and ran through March 4, 2007, at the Costume Institute in New York. Conceived as a tribute to her impeccable taste, the exhibition was curated by Harold Coda, the Costume Institute's curator in charge, in collaboration with Nan's family and friends, including designers like Oscar de la Renta, who had long admired her. It displayed more than 75 ensembles from her vast collection of thousands, carefully selected to showcase the breadth of her wardrobe and the designers she championed over decades. The pieces were categorized into thematic sections, resort wear, tailoring, evening wear, and more, evoking the intimate, organized chaos of her dressing room in the Park Avenue apartment. Resort wear highlighted her jet-set lifestyle, with flowing caftans and linen ensembles perfect for Caribbean escapes or Venetian poolside lounging. Tailoring featured her signature daytime suits from Yves Saint Laurent and Chanel, exuding power and elegance with their precise cuts and luxurious fabrics. Evening gowns dominated another area, head-turning creations from Valentino and Bill Blass that had graced countless galas, their intricate beading and bold colors capturing the spotlight. Additional categories included entertainment, outfits for specific scenarios, like hunting attire for Normandy weekends or festive dresses for Christmas in Santo Domingo, infusing the display with Nan's joyful, surprising approach to style. The installation was innovative, with garments arranged in vitrines that mimicked closet shelves, complete with accessories like shoes, handbags, and jewelry to recreate her mixing genius. Labels and wall text quoted Nan's humor and insights, such as her self-description as an alcoholic when it comes to clothes, adding a personal touch. The exhibition drew rave reviews. It was lauded as a celebration of cool glamour and spare elegance, noting how Nan's slender frame made couture come alive. Attendance was robust, attracting fashion enthusiasts, students, and society veterans who saw in the display a reflection of mid-20th century fashion, history preserved through one woman's discerning eye. The exhibition's impact extended beyond New York when it traveled to San Francisco's De Young Museum, running from June 16th to November 11th, 2007, bringing Nan's legacy back to her birthplace in a full-circle moment. Organized by the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco in partnership with the Met, this iteration featured nearly 75 ensembles, with more than 25 garments exclusive to the De Young, drawn from local connections and Nan's early life influences. Curated by Jill D'Alessandro, the show emphasized Nan's San Francisco origins, highlighting how her upbringing in a prosperous family shaped her collecting habits from a young age. Categories mirrored the Met's, resort wear, tailoring, evening wear, but incorporated regional flavor, such as pieces worn at West Coast events or inspired by Hollywood glamour. The De Young's Anderson Gallery provided a spacious, light-filled venue with displays using mirrored walls and interactive elements like audio clips of Nan's interviews to evoke her vibrant personality. Press coverage was enthusiastic. It was dubbed Nan to the Nines, praising the divine fashions and her role in defining American chic. Attendance exceeded expectations, drawing over 100,000 visitors, many locals who reminisced about Nan's youth in the city or her family's prominence. Educational programs accompanied the show, including lectures on couture preservation and workshops on style innovation, extending Nan's influence to aspiring designers and historians. Donations to the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco ensured long-term preservation. Following her death, Nan's family gifted the bulk of her collection, thousands of items from designers like Dior, YSL, Valentino, Lagerfeld for Chanel, to Faye MSF, where it joined the permanent textile holdings. Valued in the millions, this bequest included rare prototypes and personal favorites, safeguarded in state-of-the-art storage facilities with climate control and archival standards. As of 2025, pieces from her collection continue to feature in FAMF exhibitions, such as the 2024 Fashioning San Francisco, A Century of Style, which referenced Nan's influence on local elegance, showcasing her gowns alongside those of other icons. These efforts have kept her wardrobe accessible for research and display, ensuring that future generations can study and appreciate the historical and artistic value of her acquisitions. Cultural references abound in Nan Kempner's enduring legacy, embedding her story in art, literature, and popular discourse as a symbol of timeless sophistication and unapologetic living. One of the most prominent is Andy Warhol's 1973 portrait of her, a silkscreen on canvas measuring 40 by 40 inches, executed in synthetic polymer paint and ink, capturing Nan in a close-up that exemplifies Warhol's pop art style. Commissioned during Warhol's prolific period of celebrity portraits in the 1970s, when he immortalized figures like Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor through repetitive, vibrant imagery, the work features Nan's poised expression, framed by her signature blonde hair, rendered in bold colors that pop against a minimalist background. Created in Warhol's factory studio in New York, amid the swirl of 1970s counterculture and glamour, the portrait reflects their shared social circles. Nan frequented Studio 54 and Warhol's gatherings, where her slim figure and witty banter made her a natural subject. Warhol reportedly admired her as a social X-ray, a term that foreshadowed Tom Wolfe's later usage, highlighting her visibility in high society. The artwork has been exhibited in retrospectives and is held in private collections, with reproductions appearing in databases, where it's praised for blending portraiture with consumer culture commentary. It has fetched high auction prices, underscoring Nan's integration into the art world as both muse and collector. Another enduring reference is in Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City series, specifically in the 1982 novel Further Tales of the City, part of the serialized stories that began in the San Francisco Chronicle in 1976. In a satirical scene, two society matrons discuss the creation of a society wax museum to preserve legends like Nan Kempner, fretting that future generations might forget figures such as Nan Sau Schlumberger or Marie-Helene de Rothschild amid fleeting fame. This cheeky nod, set against Maupin's backdrop of 1970s San Francisco's bohemian and high society worlds, highlights Nan's status as an indelible icon whose elegance warranted immortalization. The series, adapted into TV miniseries in the 1990s and a 2019 Netflix revival, keeps the reference alive, introducing Nan to new audiences and cementing her in literary history. Nan's timelessness stems from her profound viewing of fashion as art, a perspective that blended European elegance with its emphasis on craftsmanship and heritage, with the American spirit of practicality and innovation, while encouraging living unapologetically in a conformist world. She collected not for vanity but for preservation, seeing garments as investments in cultural history, a view that influenced modern curators and designers. Her unapologetic life, defying norms, embracing excess, giving generously, inspires boldness, philanthropy, and style innovation today, as seen in 2025 exhibitions and ongoing tributes that keep her story alive.